Silver City, New Mexico, in the early 1870s. Born originally as a Spanish settlement in the heart of Apache country, Silver City rapidly grew out of a silver boom that brought prospectors from around the country eager to make their fortunes. Among these early residents came businessman and prospector William H. Antrim and his wife Catherine and her two young boys, William and Joseph. To avoid confusion with his stepfather, Catherine's son William would go by the name of Henry during his time in Silver City, but he would later become known to the world by his outlaw name, William H. Bonney, also known as Billy the Kid. Billy the Kid is considered to be one of the most notorious outlaws of the American West. It is said that by his 21st birthday, this teenage terror had killed at least 21 men, not including Mexicans and Indians. By the time of his alleged death at the hands of Pat Garrett in 1881, the Kid had escaped jail 3 times, had killed at least 4 law officers, and had left a legend of fast draws and fast horses behind him. Although Silver City is often described as Billy the Kid's childhood home, the truth of the matter is that by the time Billy arrived there with his family, he was already a teenager, which made him more than old enough to help out by working various jobs. Whether it was working at the blacksmith shop, waiting on tables at a local boarding house, or even trying his hand at the Monte tables in the local saloons, Billy's time in Silver City began to shape his view of the world and his own future. But by all accounts, at this time, Billy was no worse or no better than any other young man of his age. But all that began to change in 1874 when Catherine Antrim passed away of tuberculosis. Billy was not close with his stepfather, and whether it was the lack of a strong father figure in his life or just the kid's own passion for adventure, the Kid increasingly began to put himself into situations that would one day place him on the outlaw trail after Catherine's death. His first recorded offense occurred on September 23, 1875, when he agreed to hide a batch of stolen clothes that were taken from a local Chinese laundry. His landlady at the time found the clothes in Billy's room and turned them over to the sheriff, who placed Billy in jail. The sheriff's intention was to scare Billy, and he succeeded. So much so that Billy decided to make a break for it, and at his first opportunity, he scampered up the jailhouse chimney and ran away to freedom. Billy was now an escaped prisoner, but whether he knew it or not, nobody was actually trying too seriously to find him. His crime was minor, and there was just too much else going on in town at the time. Regardless, Billy was careful to avoid another run-in with the sheriff. He remained in the area and stayed with friends for months, but would always avoid the town proper. During this period, Billy found work off and on at various cattle camps. Between that and a little gambling, he was able to make a living for himself and even bought himself a pistol and some fancy city clothes. His first taste of real trouble came at Camp Grant, Arizona, when a man named Windy Cahill began making fun of the Kid's new clothes and called him a pimp. The Kid took offense to the comments and called Mr. Cahill a son of a bitch, which resulted in the older man smacking the Kid around and pinning him to the floor. Mr. Cahill would later say he wasn't trying to hurt the Kid, but from the Kid's point of view, he wasn't willing to take the chance. During the struggle, the Kid managed to get his hand loose, grab his pistol, and shoot his opponent in the stomach. As Windy Cahill lay dying on the floor, the Kid fled the saloon, mounted a nearby U.S. Army horse, and disappeared into the countryside. Windy Cahill died the next day. The day of that shooting was August 17, 1877, and unlike the last time the Kid broke the law, this time he was wanted for murder and pursued not just by lawmen, but also by the United States Army for stealing a government horse. The Kid now had a decision to make and needed to lay low before planning his next move. By now he had heard of the trouble brewing in Lincoln, New Mexico, and was considering heading west to participate in the fighting. Before he made up his mind, however, he wanted to go back to Silver City to see his people, so that's what he did. As usual, when the Kid returned to the area, he didn't go into town, but sent word through friends that he could be found at his stepfather's friend's home on Bear Mountain, northwest of the city. A number of Silver City residents that saw the Kid during this time were able to share their stories years later. By all accounts, despite being on the run from the law, the Kid was able to reunite with a number of his friends during his visit, and many of them described the meetings in detail, one of which was that he was described as being dressed as a country gentleman with store-bought pants. According to author Jerry Weddle, those that saw him said that he had a new maturity and that, quote, the boy who had fled New Mexico in stolen clothes now returned a seasoned survivor of the frontier, versed in lawlessness and hardened in violence, but still a boy in personality and appearance, end quote. What you are about to see is a never-before-seen photo of Billy the Kid taken in Silver City in August of 1877, possibly just a few days after killing Wendy Cahill, and very likely wearing the same fancy outfit that started their argument and resulted in Billy the Kid killing his first man. This photo captures the Kid at the pivotal moment when he was deciding whether or not to join the Lincoln County War, and when he was right on the precipice of circumstances that would launch him into global fame. There are multiple subjects in this photograph, and 2 of them have been definitively identified as matching their historical counterparts by Detective Michael Furia, a facial recognition expert currently employed by the New York City Police Department in their facial recognition unit. Detective Furia is a world-leading forensic artist, and he's used modern forensic techniques to match this photo to other known photos of the subjects it contains. Unlike other alleged photos of Billy the Kid, this photo is crystal clear, and the impact it leaves on the legacy of Billy the Kid may be far more significant than anyone could have imagined. Now, here to share the photo is author Daniel A. Edwards and Detective Michael Furia. I'm Emilio Estevez, and I hope that you're going to be as excited about what you see as I am.
Hi, my name is Daniel Edwards, and I will be taking you through the story of this remarkable photo. The photo was originally discovered in rural Canada by a French-Canadian couple that found it in a stack of other family photos they had purchased from an antique store. What intrigued them originally about this particular photo was that on the back of it was inscribed the name of Billy the Kid. Now, the couple didn't know much about American history, but they assumed that the young man in the photo would be the one who would be Billy the Kid, but they did not know who the other 2 people in the photo could be. They began to do some research and found the famous photos of Billy the Kid's mother, Catherine Antrim, and also some photos of his stepfather, William H. Antrim. It was their opinion that the people in their photo looked very much like the people in the famous photos of Billy the Kid and also the photos of his mother and stepfather, but they wanted an expert to help them confirm the authenticity of their photo, but they didn't know where to begin. Since I had written a book on Billy the Kid back in 2014, they approached me and asked for my help to verify their photo. When I first looked at the image, I had to admit that the people that they thought were Billy the Kid and Catherine Antrim did look like their famous photos, but I thought that the man they believed to be William Antrim did not compare favorably to his known photos. Also, Catherine Antrim had died in 1874, which would have made Billy the Kid 15 years old at the time of her death, and I thought that the young man in their photo looked older than that in my opinion. Another thing that bothered me was that I knew that the famous photos of Catherine Antrim had been mislabeled when they were originally published, and it had been widely accepted that they were not actually photos of Catherine Antrim after all, but rather were photos of another early Silver City resident. This had been confirmed by the original owner of these photos, a man who owned the theater in Silver City as far back as the 1930s. I therefore knew that even if the woman in this new photo was the same woman as the woman previously thought to be Catherine Antrim, we had no way of knowing her real identity or whether or not she had any relationship at all to Billy the Kid. Finally, I knew that simply looking like someone was not enough, and even if all 3 people in their photo looked like their famous counterparts, while that would be compelling, it wouldn't necessarily be enough to authenticate the photo. In order to be really sure, the time, place, and people all had to match. Armed with this information, the couple continued to do extensive research before finally discovering the identity of the mysterious Silver City woman that historians had originally mislabeled as Catherine Antrim. And this would be the discovery that would be the key to unlock the mystery of their photo. The woman's true name was Maggie Keyes, and Maggie grew up in Canada not far from where this photo was found. In the early 1870s, Maggie married an American named Levi Miller, and together they moved to Silver City, where they became acquainted with and very friendly with Billy the Kid. Levi Miller owned a blacksmith shop, and he also did some prospecting and worked some other various jobs. Billy the Kid actually worked for Levi Miller for a short time in his blacksmith shop. Now, Maggie and Levi Miller were just one couple that immigrated to Silver City from this area of Canada. Not only were there many other couples, but Maggie's family remained there for some time. We now had a very logical connection as to why a photo of Billy the Kid in Silver City would have been sent to this area of rural Canada where the photo was found. We also had evidence of when the photo was taken, as hydraulic mining operations, such as the one shown in the photo, were outlawed in 1884, but they were very common in Silver City during the 1870s. This means that the photo does date to the period when Billy the Kid, after killing Wendy Cahill, went back to the area around Silver City to see his friends. We believe that that is the occasion on which this photo was taken. We had now matched the time and the place of when we believe this photo was taken, and had a strong understanding of why it would have been found where it was found in Canada. All that was now left was to take the photo to a forensic facial recognition expert to see if the people in this new photo matched known photos of Billy the Kid and Levi and Maggie Miller. But yet we had one last challenge. We wanted to be sure that whoever analyzed the photo was 100% unbiased. This was important to me because I wanted to ensure that we received an independent and unbiased assessment before the detective knew who we were talking about. The only way to do this in my mind was to not let them know who we were trying to verify. What I'd like to do now is to share a little bit of my first interaction with Detective Michael Furia of the New York City Police Department. At the time of this recording, Detective Furia had never met me and didn't know anything about the subjects that we were discussing. He would later tell me that he thought I was working on a genealogy project. Now, this video has been edited to eliminate small talk and other non-essential discussions, but the content of this video is exactly as represented. So, hey, thanks for jumping on. I really appreciate your help. So if you don't mind, I'll interview you real quick, and then we'll just talk about whatever you want. And I know your time is valuable, so I won't take too much of it. So
no problem.
Cool. Okay, so just to kind of talk about, what we're doing and how this came together. So I reached out to you on LinkedIn. You don't know me, right? We've never met before. No. You were nice enough to respond to my LinkedIn message, and I put in there, I actually have the message that I'll just read.
Sure.
And I said, if I can find it, I said, hey, I want to know the probability likelihood that the person in one vintage photo is the same person as a subject in another vintage photo. I have probably 3 subjects I'm looking to identify against maybe 8 photos. I have one photo with 3 people in it, 3 subjects in it, for example, and I want to know if those 3 subjects match individual photos of other subjects. So basically, do these 3 people match photos of these other people I'm going to show you? And you said, yeah, sure, send it over. I sent it over. And if I could ask you, when you got those, had you ever seen any of those people before? Did any of them, you recognize any of them? Like, oh, I know who that is.
No, I've never seen them at all. No.
Okay. All right. And if you don't mind, and again, you're not speaking for your employer for sure, but if you don't mind sharing with me, like, what do you do for a living and who do you work for?
So my name is Michael Furia. I work for the NYPD. I am in the art of facial identification.
Okay.
Prior to that, my knowledge is generally in digital media arts, website development. I went to school for that back in 2001. 9/11 was my first day of college, believe it or not.
Wow.
I kind of got out of that field a little bit, and that's how I ended up in this field. And after about 10 years trying to get into this industry, I became a detective, and I worked my way into this unit. And this is what I do on an everyday basis now.
Wow. So you catch people based on facial recognition technology and expertise, and it could be evidence that puts them in jail. I mean, that's how good you are.
Yeah, we always provide like a possible lead. We never say it's 100% the guy because we do an investigation. And, it's up to the case detective to determine if they have probable cause to make an arrest. But when we make an identification, kind of like the work we're doing together, we're like 99.9, in that area.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so you're an expert. You do this for a living, and there's a science behind what you do. I know a lot of departments use just AI. They plug it in, it spits it out. But you guys in New York are a little more sophisticated than that.
Yeah. And me, actually, in the right now time, in the present time, I'm trying to develop more updated sketches. So with COVID going around, we had a lot of mass cases and whatnot. So we had to kind of assume what was underneath there.
Yeah.
So I came up with a system to kind of remove the mask. A lot of different Photoshop is used to kind of blend in a face based on the study of physiognomy. And from there, we go and we put it in the software, which would initially reject it, is now giving us results. Right. So, you usually end up needing a secondary identifier. But now we're taking it one step further to try to make a more developed sketch with the photo. Instead of what you usually see on TV, like a well drawn out photo by an artist. Yeah. But now we have more of a lifelike guy. So that's the post that you've probably seen on LinkedIn, and exactly generating a lot of traffic with that right now.
Well, that's what drew me to you, is you're a leader in this field and you're innovating and things. And so between that and the fact that you don't know me from Adam, you don't know any of the people I showed you, this is perfect. This is exactly what I was hoping to get, and I want to thank you for helping me out. At this point in the process, I had no way of knowing if Detective Furia would recognize the famous photo of Billy the Kid. For that reason, we began the facial identification process with Maggie and Levi Miller. I first provided the detective all 4 photos of the woman that we believed to be Maggie Miller. This included 2 confirmed photos of Maggie Miller provided by her family, and also the 2 photos of the woman previously misidentified as Catherine Antrim. We asked the detective if he could confirm whether or not it was the same woman in all of the photos, and after extensive analysis, the detective replied that he was highly confident that all 4 photos did show the same woman at different times in her life. We then asked the detective to compare this woman with the woman in our photograph, and again he replied that he was highly confident that Maggie Miller was the woman in our photo. As we continued our conversation, it became clear to me how differently professionals approach this type of analysis versus the average person. First and foremost, I was impressed with just how quickly the detective could see past inconsequential variables such as hairstyle and length, which regularly change, and also account for aging, posture, facial expressions, and even lighting to understand continuity between different photos. For example, the shape of one's ears will always present differently depending on the position of one's head versus the camera. So, it's important to look more closely at micro-identifiers such as individual portions of the ear when comparing photos with different angles. Another very important feature are eyes and eyebrows. In regards to Maggie Miller, she had very distinctive eyes and eyebrows which made her fairly easy to identify. The detective shared with me that the eyes are often where the truth lies, and in many cases, even when the subject is in disguise, their eyes will give away their identity. Another feature that I had not heard of before, but that is regularly used by detectives, is the distance between their chin and chest, which typically does not change over time and can be a good way to eliminate a subject if that distance does not match. Other features that I was aware of, but certainly learned a lot more about, were the shape of the ears, particularly the inner portion of the ear, the jawline, and the shape of the nose. What was interesting to me about these features is that they do change or appear to change over time, but they usually do so in a very specific way. For instance, one's nose tends to widen over time, and one's ears tend to grow outward. The detective also shared with me that where possible, it's always preferred to have full body shots of the suspects. Not only does this show greater context, but it also allows for what the detective called gait, which broadly means, in this case, how an individual carries themselves. Everything from how they stand, their posture, and the position of their body when either moving or at rest. Fortunately, we had at least one full body shot for both Maggie and Levi Miller, and for Levi Miller, we actually had 2. Finally, the detective continued to look for secondary identifiers, which could be anything from the same pair of earrings being worn, or even the same 2 people appearing together in multiple photos. We then turned our attention to who we thought was Levi Miller. As a test, I included in Levi Miller's photos of William Antrim, Billy the Kid's stepfather. The detective easily identified that William Antrim was not the same person as Levi Miller, and I was very impressed by how quickly he was able to separate the 2 men. He also definitively ruled out the possibility that the man in our photo was William Antrim, which was consistent with my own analysis, although in my case I was excluding him simply because of the difference in their height, and the detective's analysis was much more comprehensive. Regardless, with William Antrim eliminated, the detective turned his focus to the remaining photos of Levi Miller, which he thought were a favorable comparison to the man in our photo. but he was concerned with the blurring in the original image, which prevented him from giving the same highly confident judgment that he had given on Maggie Miller. As I questioned him, he explained that in his line of work, the suspect is innocent until proven guilty, and therefore the discipline of refusing to confirm a match unless absolutely certain is crucially important. I was impressed with the detective's integrity, even when it came to what he thought at the time was an inconsequential genealogy project. That said, I was encouraged by the fact that the detective left open the possibility that the man in our photo was Levi Miller, so I continued to push for confirmation, and I pointed out that both men had peculiar similar features such as what I call see-through eyes, and also a peculiar earlobe on their left ear. But again, the detective refused to give me a highly confident judgment, going only so far as to say that it was possible and perhaps even likely, but that he would not confirm it without more information. In my mind, this refusal to confirm Levi Miller strengthened my confidence in Detective Furia because I knew he was being objective and not just telling me what I wanted to hear. However, I still needed to verify whether or not the young man in the photo was Billy the Kid, and I was still concerned that if I provided the famous tintype for comparison, that the detective or someone near him may recognize the image and it may influence his analysis. For this reason, I decided to provide for comparison multiple photos of Brushy Bill Roberts, who in 1950 claimed to be Billy the Kid. I thought this would be a good test for the detective. After all, if he said that the young man in my photo was not Brushy Bill, we could still move on to match the photo to the famous tintype of Billy the Kid. However, if the photo did match Brushy Bill Roberts, we would need to consider under what circumstances would this old cowboy from Texas be photographed with Maggie Miller in Silver City. Here's my interaction with Detective Furia. Let me share my screen real quick because I want to show what I sent you. So what I did is I said, I have a subject, and so this is the subject. And so there's the guy in the vintage photo. I gave you a full body shot. And then I said, I have this other guy, and I called him John. And I've 6 pictures of John here. Mm-hmm. And so, it's up to you. Now, I told you it was the same guy at different times in his life. But you don't know who John is. You've never seen John before. And
I call him Patrick, actually, but yes.
Really?
Yeah, he looks like a Patrick I know.
Oh, okay, nice.
Right.
Cool. So when you looked at these, did you have any doubt at first that this was the same guy? Or I know you came back to me and did some analysis between the photos. So you were probably trying to figure out, wait a minute, is this the same guy?
Yeah, I mean, right away, I didn't know who was who. I wanted to kind of line it up in what I believe to be an order in coordination with his age. Mm-hmm. So that was the first step I did. I knew this was the oldest photo, the one we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
So I put that one all the way to the bottom right, and I went backwards. And and I believe I got it pretty accurate.
Yeah.
You see the development of his ears every year. They grow 0.51 millimeters. That's which is usually standard in anybody's age progression. Our ears tend to grow out and wider.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And certainly by this time you can see they're kind of out there. And yes. The mustache, no mustache. I mean, you blew right past that. You've done this so much, you knew right away that's
what I got caught up on that specifically was the shape of it kind of changes a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But that as well, a male, especially during this time period, more likely to grow more hair as he ages. So, you got to take all this into consideration when you're looking at these kind of photos.
Yeah, and then there he is as a kid. Now the buck teeth thing, did you think this kid's probably got buck teeth, or did that?
The upper lip had a lot to do with what I was looking at. The eyebrow, the upper lip, and the shape of his eyes.
Okay, so seeing these for the very first time, using the techniques that you employ on a daily basis, you said right away that these 6 pictures of John, this matches this guy. This is the same guy. It's a different photo of the same guy, in your opinion.
I'm highly confident that it is the same person.
So if I was a detective, you'd say, hey, go talk to that guy. I think that's
it. You'd probably want to go speak to that guy.
Right. Okay. All right. Awesome. Mm-hmm. So, and then the hands or anything. Now you put some stuff. So let me pull up your comparison here.
Right.
And you mentioned in the LinkedIn, you said, I'm confident this is the same person. So this guy and this guy is the same guy. And then if I could just read your comments and jump in if you want. But
Sure.
you said, this guy's almost identical minus his mouth pose, which is diminishing his upper lip size. So, I mean, again, you take what I really respected about what you did is you're taking in posture. So I won't really tell you too much just because I don't want you to know who's who and that. But there's a famous photo of this person where they compare a lot of the ears. And I'm not an expert, but I always say, look, the position of ears, if I tilt my head back, my ears change position, right? So you right away as an expert got what average Joe on the American street doesn't, which is, hey, look at what he's doing with his mouth. If I'm chewing something or if I'm like, making a face or something, your mouth looks different. But you accounted for that in this, which I thought was just really cool. So I'm almost identical minus the mouth pose, which is diminishing the upper lip. Eyebrow. This was great because this is very young. I think he's supposed to be 11 here.
Okay.
And I think he's supposed to be 15 here.
Gotcha.
So you see big kids and stuff. He's actually not a very tall guy, supposedly. But anyway, eyebrow distance, shape to eyes at this age are accurate. Pose change diminishes upper lip again. Right. So that, and then so you flip this horizontal. I was going to ask you why. Was that to get the head tilt the same?
Well, if you look at the original, the bottom left, you see that in that position, there you go. And his left ear is a little higher than the right ear. So the face is pretty much, for the most part, symmetrical.
I see.
And he has a pretty symmetrical face, believe it or not. Everyone's different. They say, believe it or not, the most beautiful people, beautiful women, attractive men have very symmetrical faces. And he actually has a very symmetrical face. So he was probably a stud at his time.
I got you. So cool. Yes. So you were able to do that. Did you notice anything about the eyebrows? So one of the interesting things that people have told me, is this asymmetrical eyebrow idea, where this one is kind of a point and this one is kind of a more gentle slope. And if you look at this dude, he's got the same point and then a slope. Yes. And he's got, again, the slope and the point. Was there anything about that you thought about or noticed?
You definitely see similarities to the photo where he's alleged to be 15 and the photo right next to it up there.
He's like 22 there, or 23, 22. I think, supposedly.
Yeah, I mean, it's all in the eyes. I do this every day, so I probably see it a little quicker than most people.
Yeah.
But I see that was something I seen the way I put it of those first top pictures on the top floor.
Yeah.
Was something that stood out to me right away. And then as we go lower in that diagram, those were harder to piece together because age is a tricky thing.
Yeah.
And especially since the COVID, the mass-related cases and whatnot, you're always looking at secondary identifiers. So that's where I factored in the hands. And factor in the way he's standing and whatnot. It's very important.
Yeah, and the pinky ring, he's got a pinky ring, and this guy has a pinky ring. Oh, here, I can show you in the...
right.
See if I have it. Oh, wait, it's here.
There you go.
Actually,
yeah, you see how he's like got his
see it there?
4 fingers curled up there.
Yeah, see the
there
ring?
You go. Oh, okay, see, you could kind of see it there.
Yeah, he's holding on to this stick, which actually controls this pump. See this rod?
Okay,
that's how you kind of direct the water. They're mining here, so they shoot water in it. And it's a sluice mine or whatever they call it. I don't know what they call it. But he's posing, holding on to that like he's mining. Like, a kid goes to work with their dad, wants to say, look, I'm driving the tractor or whatever. So there's his ring. You can see it there.
Okay. See, I didn't even know that.
I see. Yeah.
You knew more about it than I did.
Well, just because I know that this is a kind of
I actually had a question for you.
Yes, sir.
That photo that you just passed, go back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That collar brass, I was showing this. I was asking for additional help with one of my coworkers, Detective Fox, and I was trying to see. We noticed this pin. It says USY
U.S. Volunteers.
Okay, U.S. Volunteers.
This is the Rough Riders, Teddy Roosevelt's guys.
Gotcha.
And this is taken in Montauk, New York, in 1898 when they mustered out.
Okay.
So this is a muster out photo, and he's got his lapel pin. He enlisted as a volunteer.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know how common it is for active duty soldiers to wear pinky rings.
Right. Okay.
But again, that's a feature of this individual, that he wears a pinky ring.
Yeah, he might have started a whole trend.
He may have been the guy, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So if I could, and so you said this head position leans towards left chin heavy, pouted lips, cleft in chin. A lot of people say it's not the same chin. It obviously is to me. It obviously was to you.
Right.
This is interesting. This is where your science is coming through. Infratip lobule drops with age while skin opposite angular arteries widen. I don't know what that means, but it sounds really smart.
Yeah, it's in connection with the shape of his nose and how, as we age, those exact parts, it's hard to explain them. The bottom part of your nose is what spreads out.
Okay.
And it will never look, as you know, will never look the same as 50 years from now.
Yeah, that's why the kid here looks a little different than the old guy. Okay, nice.
Right.
But you can tell it's the same. No, I mean, I can. I've looked at this so much, but again, I'm not an expert like you. Chin, bottom, mental protuberance, tip distance to shirt collar seems consistent. Okay. Right. Gait and posture seems accurate. Thumbs remain extended close to index fingers, as you show here. More structural development than weight gain at this age. Right, mate. It's really cool. Really cool you said that. Detective Furia had now confirmed that the young man in the photo was a match to Brushy Bill Roberts of Hyco, Texas. He had also confirmed that the woman in the photo was a positive match to Maggie Miller. While not ruling out that Levi Miller was the other man in the photo, Detective Furia deferred that confirmation until more information could be obtained. Now, it was time for me to ask Detective Furia to compare this photograph with the famous tintype of Billy the Kid. So you've been great, man. I really appreciate it. I'm trying to think of what to do. So, I mean, at this point, if I show you the next picture, you're going to know who it is. So maybe I can do that if you want to see it.
Sure.
Let me. I might as well at this point, because kind of established already that you're independent. You're just giving your honest opinion. And then you might hang up on me. You might say, "Come on, dude. Like, oh my God, I'm definitely not giving you." But I actually, well, first I'll ask you if you know who the picture is first. Okay. And then when you're like, yeah, obviously everybody knows who that is, but you might not. You might say, no, I don't know. Give me 2 seconds here. All right.
If it's somebody we learned in school, I might have forgot by now.
It used to be. I don't think nowadays anybody knows who it is.
Right.
How about that? That's good if you don't know who it is.
I would have to guess an early presidential candidate at one point.
Abraham Lincoln?
No, definitely not Abraham Lincoln. No. It could be. I'm not.
I don't want to give it away here.
Let me not even guess.
So back to this guy. Well, in that case, then I'll send you this photo.
Okay.
And I'll ask you to compare it against this guy, who I think is the same guy, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I see. The ears. We're back in the same consistency with the eyebrows. I'm comfortable with this already.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're comfortable. I don't know what I hit, but I just messed it up. So
his position, the mouth position is a little different. That's what's throwing it off too. His eyebrows kind of sinking.
Because it's open. His mouth is open, I think.
Yeah. His hair is a lot longer than it normally is.
Yes, sir.
But based on what we have at hand, his chin shape is, it's consistent. Everything's consistent there. There's always the possibility, you would know the answer if he has a twin brother or something like that, but I don't think that's the case.
So you think it would be highly likely that's the same person?
Can you see his stance again? If you zoom out.
Yeah.
Yeah, where his thighs meet, kind of very similar pose. If you notice, like right near his kneecap, his pants are like perfectly aligned. The way he keeps his legs, feet are definitely diagonally directioned. Even the way his hips lay. The belt on his left is a little higher than on his right side. So the right, he probably has the gun on the right hip. Yeah, right there. Okay. So that's dragging it down a little bit. See the pinky ring?
Yes, sir.
There you go. Yeah, you see the neck distance. Yeah, looks pretty good. I like it. I do like it.
Pretty cool. All right, brother.
That's great, buddy. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I really appreciate you helping me out. This is helpful because, I don't want to go around saying this could be the guy if it's really definitely not the guy. So I was ready to give up and say, hey, there's no way, this is impossible. It's just an old picture. No problem.
I definitely support that theory.
Awesome, man. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it.
No problem.
At this point, I was confident that I could tell the young couple from Canada that the mystery of their photo had been solved. Detective Furia, with no knowledge of the historical significance of his analysis, had confirmed that this young man in the photo was Billy the Kid. He had also confirmed that the woman in the photo was Maggie Keys Miller of Silver City. Finally, while inconclusive because of the blurring of the image, Detective Furia was open to the possibility that the older man in the photo could be her husband, Levi Miller. But what of the surprising match of the photo to Brushy Bill Roberts? Detective Furia had said that he was highly confident that Roberts was a match, not only to this photo, but also to the famous tintype of Billy the Kid, going so far as to say that if the two men were not the same person, that they could be identical twins. For many years, people have been fascinated by the possibility that Pat Garrett did not kill Billy the Kid. In addition to the rumors that have always persisted ever since Garrett originally made his claim, strong evidence has come out over the years that the kid may have lived to be an old man. One of the strongest pieces of evidence, some say, is a sworn affidavit from Severo Gallegos of Lincoln, New Mexico. In 1950, Severo said that Brushy Bill Roberts was the same man that he had known as Billy the Kid in the 1800s. This is important because it is indisputable that Gallegos not only knew the kid extremely well, but he even was on the scene and assisted the kid with his most famous jailbreak, which was the time when he escaped from the Lincoln County Jail. It is interesting that despite the fact that Severo Gallegos is mentioned in literally every single telling of the kid's famous escape, the historians do not also mention that this same Severo Gallegos, 70 years later, would say that Brushy Bill Roberts was Billy the Kid. But regardless of whether or not one chooses to believe that the kid died in 1881 or in 1950, this new photo of the kid in Silver City in August of 1877 shows the young outlaw like never before, right on the precipice between innocence and evil as he contemplates the next steps of what would become his notorious life. This begs the question, if after 100 years new evidence can continue to come to light and provide us with new insights into the kid's life, then maybe if we continue to search, we will find that the kid's true story is only just now beginning to be told.